Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Michael. I'm from Professional Advantage. I'll be your host this afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on year-end processing, specifically for Microsoft Dynamics GP. So just to make sure everyone's in the right room and watching the right webinar, this is for our Dynamics GP users and, of course, a little session we're running for those customers that are doing a year-end around the December 31 timeframe. So today you can see there's myself here who will be our host, but the real person doing all the work for us will be Susan. So Susan's obviously the good-looking one in the bottom right-hand corner there on your screen. So Susan is one of our senior Dynamics GP consultants here at Professional Advantage, and will actually take us through the year-end process and the slides relating to that. So just before I hand over to Susan, just by way of a very quick introduction, what we've done and the reason for today is we've looked at calls that come into our help desk based on year-end questions at this time of year and again at around the June 30 time. And we've seen the need to put together some information for you just around general processing hints, tips, tricks, specifically that our consultants have learned over the years that will actually help you prepare for your year-end. So today is all about customers that are doing a year-end around the December timeframe. So I'll hand over now to Susan, who will actually take you through the slides. Remember, we do have a question. You can put them in through the course of the presentation, and we'll wrap those up at the end. So Susan, without any further ado, I will hand over to you to take us through the presentation today. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. As Michael introduced, my name is Susan, and I'm a PA consultant based in the PA Melbourne office. Okay, now today's webinar is mainly on the Great Plains end of the year process routine. Just before we go into more details, we're going to start off with some key important facts about Dynamics GP's year-end process. There are three important key facts that I'd like to highlight at the beginning of this webinar. These are, we need to remember that the GP year-end process is not a reversible process. What that means is once the year-end process is run in Great Plains, there is no way we can say, let's undo this, revert back to before we run the year-end process. Okay, that's what basically what this means. So, therefore, that leads to the second important fact, which is back up your databases before commencing a year-end process. And the main reason for that is purely because the year-end process is not reversible. So in the event if the year-end process was somehow interrupted or it wasn't successful or somehow the figure, year-end process reviews the figure is not the correct figure that we're expecting, we know there is something we need to go back and fix. The only way to quotation mark revert back to year-end process is basically restore your database backup. So that's why the second key important fact about year-end is do a full database backup before commencing the year-end process. Okay, now the last but not least important fact says it is recommended users are logged out from Dynamics GP during the year-end process. One of the reasons for that is also linked to the fact that the year-end process is not reversible. So if someone's processing data while we are actually running the year-end process, if we do need to go back to the restore status, all the work that's processed during the year-end process will be lost. So that's one of the reasons that we recommend have all of your GP users log out from Dynamics GP when we do the year-end process. And the second reason for that is because when we do the GP year-end process, the GP application user interface might not seem, busy. The best it can do is show you a progress bar, but the actual data database behind the scenes, is doing a lot of data shuffling, so therefore it takes up a lot of resources. So any other thing you do, you will find either the system freeze very slow, or you get frustrated and wondering why nothing's happening. So that's another reason that we recommend don't do anything while we do the year-end close. So, okay, remember the 3 important factors about year-end. Let's move on to the next slide. So we are all kind of thinking the year-end process is a key process we have to do each year. What actually exactly does the year-end process do for us? Okay, we've listed a number of key things to explain what the year-end process in GP is all about. The first thing that we can talk about is that when we do the year-end process, the system is, again, doing a lot of data shuffling. It transfers current year GL transaction into history. And as part of the year-end process, there are tables behind the GP application. Well, according to the transaction date, we're saying, okay, this transaction, because of your date, falls into the closing financial year. I'm going to move it into history. Depending on the timing when we do the year-end close, there may be already, future year transaction, that's GL, in the GL transaction table. Those transactions will not be removed into history because the year-end process will check the, general posting date to see whether or not you belong to the closing financial year. Therefore, will determine whether or not this particular piece of record should shuffle into the history table. So that's one thing the year-end process will do, which is transferring current year GL transaction to history based on the transaction posting date. The second thing the year-end process will do is transfer current year profit and loss amounts to the retained earnings account. What that means is when we set up GL General Ledger, there are master records we need to set up, which are your chart of accounts. When we set up chart of accounts, we need to define whether or not a particular chart of accounts we set up, the posting type is of profit and loss or balance sheet. So any account that's been set up as profit and loss account during the GL year process, its balances will be summed up into the nominated retained earnings account. So all the P&L accounts will be summarized into one amount and posted into the retained earnings account. That's another thing that GP year-end process will do. The third thing the GP year-end process will do is it'll zero out all P&L account balances. Because all the P&L account balances from the second point, the point above says that we're going to transfer you into the retained earning account. Therefore, the balances no longer need to be there when we start the new financial year. Everything will start from scratch for P&L accounts in the new financial year. Okay, the fourth thing the GP year-end process will do is it'll summarize balance sheet accounts and brings in beginning balances in the new year. What that means is actually the balance sheet account balances at the end of the year that we are going to close will be moved forward as beginning balance for the same account for the next open financial year. So that's basically what it's doing with the balance sheet accounts. And also the end of the year can do is it can remove inactive accounts with zero balances if we chose to do so. So there is an option there when we run year-end to say, would you wish to remove inactive accounts with zero balances? Okay. And the last thing the year-end process will do is it's going to print a year-end report. Now, bearing in mind this year-end report up until GP 2013, it's a report that you cannot reprint. But with GP 2013 R2, this report can actually be reprinted. But that's additional information I'd like to just put it out for you to be aware. This is a new feature out there in the future version, in the new version, latest version. So the year-end report, it'll print out all the P&L account balances, and if you have multi-currency, it'll say this balance is for a particular currency after the exchange rate equal to your functional currency, 1, 2, 3, or X amount. And then all of those balances will be summed up and posting to the return earnings account. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what the year-end process will do in GP. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the month-end procedures. Now, as part of the year-end process, because we are typically doing that after the last month of the financial year, then once we've done the month-end, we say we're ready for the year-end close procedure. That's why we need to talk about month-end procedure as part of the year-end. As usual, the month-end process we usually do needs to be performed before the year-end. Those typical month-end processes are post all of your batches relating to the year you want to close. And you can do that very quickly by going through tools, routines, and master posting. I think this window is quite often be used, and this the path to go there is just as tools, routines, and master posting. We also, as part of the month-end, we need to make sure we complete the usual month-end procedure for all modules as usual, right? Usually, as month-end process, you'll do the routine stuff. All of those tasks need to be performed as part of the year-end process as well. For example, we probably should reconcile our RN, PM, and the bank rec and GL module and run the relevant reports that usually run, like the trial balances and things like that. And also, before we are saying, we're ready for the year-end process as a part of the month-end procedure, we recommend you to do a complete backup of all databases, and that's if you have multiple databases in GP. So those are the routine month-end procedure we recommend you to do before the year-end starts. Now, check links is part of the year-end procedure we usually recommend you to do. Check links is such a process as part of the grade plan data maintenance procedure. What check links usually do is it examines the table, checking corresponding information in related tables, and if possible, it will change the damaged data to match the corresponding data in an undamaged table. So in other words, the check link process is a way to check your data integrity. The GP table, behind the scenes is called relational databases. So all of these tables has a relationship into other corresponding tables. But there are key tables hold the information will define a particular record, should that be a correct information or not. So as part of the check link process, some of the data damage can be repaired. So that's why we usually recommend you to do a check links to make sure the data integrity is in check. However, because the check links can somehow repair data, certain circumstances, depending on the damage, the type of damage to your data, if there are any, the check links would alter certain records. So we strongly recommend you, before you run a check link, again, make sure you have a full database backup before you do the check links. Just in case check links reviews a major data integrity issue, then we can say, well, let's restore your backup prior to the check links, and let's investigate what the data integrity issue is and see whether we can repair it correctly. Because not all data damages can be repaired by check links. So in those cases, the backup is crucial. We need to restore backup. That's the reason. And usually after the check links, we recommend you to do another backup because, the check links would review certain things. We might go in and do a bit of change and adjusting as well. So that's why prior to and after check links, we recommend you to have 2 sets of backups. Okay, so that's check links. That's working now. So check links, what do we do? What should we normally include as part of the check links? So we recommend you to do the check links for various modules depending on your license or the active modules that you are using. We will recommend you to do check links on if you use project accounting, you need to do PA check links. Otherwise, we need to do check links against your sales series, purchasing series, inventory series if you use that module, and financial series. So basically all the modules you're using, we recommend you to do a check links before the year-end process. After the data integrity checking, which is the check link process, we also recommend you to do a reconcile. What does reconcile do? Usually the reconcile, as I explained before, because GPE is run on a relational databases, various tables would hold a different portions of a transaction record. So if I pick an example of the GL transaction, right? The GL transaction, we have a header record, and then we have a distribution record. We call it line record. So all the line records should add up to the header record as a total. So those sort of things we need to run reconcile to make sure they're all in check. So it is recommended we also do reconcile process for all the modules you're using. For example, if you use sales order processing, purchase order processing, inventory, and project accounting, receivables, payables, and general ledger. So this is one other routine process we recommend you to do before the year end. So run through all the modules, do your reconcile. I will demonstrate the windows that we are going to use for reconcile processes when we actually start talking about each module, how the year-end process is going to be run. Okay, so don't panic. Okay, now once we've done the system general maintenance, like check links and reconcile, then we're going to talk about more in details about the year-end routine on subledgers. Subledgers basically in Great Plains are any other module then besides general ledger. They're all called subledger. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure the physical and text periods for all subledgers, which are the modules that you are using, are basically closed, and also the new financial year is set up for the next transacting financial year. And there isn't a particular sequence that you must follow when we do all the subledger year-end closure, but a recommended way sequence of closing the subledger can followed by as you close. If you do use inventory, you close inventory module first, then receivables module, payables. The last thing you have to do before the year end is the fixed asset year end close. Now this is one module that I'm going to put a bit more time in to explain the reason why that needs to be done, must perform year end, which is the fixed asset module, before the general ledger, before you transact next future year's transaction. Okay, now we're getting into the specifics of the subledger year-end closure. The first one we're going to talk about is inventory year-end closure. So as part of the year-end routine for inventory, again, we recommend we're going to ask you to check all the transactions for the year you are going to close are posted. Otherwise, the year-end close is not going to be correct. And also, we need to reconcile inventory quantities. So that's part of the routine we need to perform on the inventory module, and complete a physical inventory count and post any adjustments. So that's a routine that a lot of places usually do on a monthly basis, but if you don't, at the year end, this is strongly recommended a procedure you do your stock take and then post all your adjustments. And then you need to print any additional reports that you usually do. For example, inventory stock status report, run whatever smart listed report you usually do as part of the month-end routine. So when is the year end, that's no different. Also, then we need to do a pre-year-end closing backup. So that's the backup, SQL database backup we recommend you do. And then once all of this is done, you're ready to close the year. And also, after the inventory year-end close, then we need to close the physical period for inventory series. And make a post-year-end closing backup. So there are two sets of backup. Again, we can see, this is how it's done. Before you close the year, after you do the routine stuff, do a backup, and then is the actual year-end process. After the actual year-end process is done, then we do another backup. Okay. Let's show you the inventory module year-end process screen, and you'll have a more visual idea about all of those things I'm mentioning on this slide. So let me bring up my grade plan. Now, before I show you the screen, I want to point out that this version of grade plans I'm running here is the latest. It's GP 2013 R2, so it's not the standard GP 2013 with the service pack, it's R2. So Microsoft defined this as a minor, version release rather than, a major version release. It's still called 2013, but it's specified as, R2. Okay, in the inventory module, and when we do year-end close, because it's a once a year routine thing, so naturally the year-end close screen is on the routine area. So the inventory year-end routine screen in my version looks like this. So it has options for you to select whether or not you wish to remove discontinued items. If you have a large number of those, it's a good idea to remove them. So when you do lookups, they're no longer there, mixed up with all the other items if they're discontinued. And also have, zero stock on hand balances. And you can also remove, if you wish, sold lot attributes if you use lot number. And you can remove sold receipts and cost change history prior to a nominated date. Okay. You also have an option to update items standard cost. So if you wish, the item standard cost can be updated as part of the inventory year-end process. Now, this process itself, it's so straightforward. After you tick whatever options you prefer to choose and put in a date if you so choose to, remove total receipts and cost change history prior to a certain day, then all you need to do is click on the process button. And the time it's going to take, it's going to depending on the number of data or records that's been processed in the financial year that you are going to close for inventory. Now, the significance of the inventory sub-module year-end close, what it does is it's going to actually move transaction records from current year in the inquiry screen to last year. That's what it does. Okay, certain places, if you, so with this in mind, so if you have posted inventory transactions into the future year before you run the inventory year-end close, those posted transactions, the future year posted transactions will be moved into last year transactions as part of the year-end process. So that's why usually the sub-module year-end close have to be performed before you start processing the future year transactions. Now that's sub-ledger, including inventory. GL is a different scenario. Okay, so that's inventory. Let's go back to our slideshow. I also would like to show you those Reconcile screens, and yeah, just so you know where to find that screen as part of the year-end process, because that's part of the year-end procedure we recommend you to do. So it's under utility. So I'm still selecting inventory as a sub-module here. In the sub-module inventory, there is a utility called Reconcile. Okay, again, you can choose to reconcile earning a range of items if you choose to do so, and then the Reconcile process will only be performed against the selected range of items. Otherwise, if you leave this option to be all, then all inventory item records will be reconciled. Okay, so again, it's a very simple screen, but when we do click on the process button, the system is going to get quite busy to, do all the data checking and shoveling in the back end. Okay, let's go back to the slideshow. So that's the inventory module. Quite straightforward. A few things I'd just like to highlight before I move on to the next slide is make sure you post all the transactions for the closing financial year. And also, if you really want inquiry data through a few of the inventory inquiry screen to be accurate in terms of what's current year transaction and what's prior year transaction, then you really need to do the year-end close for inventory before you post the future year transaction. So just bearing in mind, this is the point. But if you did process future year transaction prior to running the inventory year-end process, nothing major is going to be caused by this. It's purely the inquiry screen for the last year transaction would include the new financial year's transaction that you've posted prior to running the inventory year-end process. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is just saying what I just mentioned before. Year-end close must be done before any transaction for the new year have been posted. So I've explained that before, so that's come up in this slide. Things we need to be aware. Options to remove, that's just explaining the screen. If you remember the screen I previously showed before. Okay, the update standard cost. This is particularly applied to the inventory valuation method of FIFO or LIFO. If you use FIFO or LIFO as your inventory valuation method, items will have the standard cost field updated to reflect the current cost. So the current cost is the last purchase price that you actually buying the product for. So it's going to update the standard cost with that as part of the year-end if you tick this option. Okay, right. And as part of the inventory year-end, there will be no year-end inventory report print because purely, it's not moving any balances around. It's purely just moving transaction records from the current year bucket to the prior year bucket. Okay, now the next sub-module year-end we're going to talk about is the receivable management. Very similar logic here. Before we run the year-end process for receivable management, we should make sure all of our sales and receivable transactions for the year we're going to close are all posted and backup. Always remember, critical thing in the year-end process, regardless with the subledger or GL, is backup. So do a pre-year-end close backup, and then we can run close the year, and we'll need to close the tax year as well. And then after all of that's done, we recommend you to make another backup for the record. Okay, so after we explain how inventory module year-end process receivable is reflected in the same logic, posting transaction and make a backup, and then do the year-end process and make another backup. Okay, right. Now, what exactly the impact of the RM year-end process will do for us? Basically, it's going to move, as I said, transaction records in the inquiry window from the current year to historical year. I'll just show you a screen in Great Plans how this inquiry screen shows. So if I go to Receivables, that's my sales module. If I go into Routine, so this is a yearly summary. Right, if I bring up any data, here it is, my favorite data. You see how this inquiry screen, I have a column set that's year to date, transaction figures, what are the sales, cost, and cash received. And my last year column is blank at the stage. But I have a live to date figure. So once I do the AR year-end close, from the moment I do the year-end close procedure, all of this data showing in the year-to-date column will be transferred into the second column, which is labeled as last year. And my year-to-date column will be start from fresh, which will be 0. And then as I post the transaction into the future year, or the year that's coming, then the data in this column, the year-to-date column, will start accumulating again until I do the next subledger AR year-end close. This data will move on to the last year. The last year column data will be added on to the live-to-date data. Okay, so basically the significance of AR year-end close, if you can't get it done on time. By on time, we mean before you post the future year transaction, all it's going to impact is that year-to-date data will include the posted future year transaction. When you do the year-end close, then those figures will be moved to last year column. That's not a life or death kind of situation if you can't get the year-end done on time. As a matter of fact, many clients of ours, they don't actually perform the subledger year-end close. The reason being that they don't purely relying on that. This screen, it's called the Data Yearly Summary Inquiry screen. to get the information, because there are other ways we can get the data out. For example, we can use ClickView or other, reporting tools to get the data out as well. And also, there are other ways to inquire about the data information into this module. Okay, now that's basically the inquiry information that's going to be impacted by the AR year-end close. Now the actual year-end close window in AR is under routines again. So this is the window. Again, as you can see, it's a quite simple window, not busy at all, not like other transaction process window. When we perform receivable year-end procedure, we usually select the financial year to do the year-end process. There are, people want to also do a calendar year. That's it's not that crucial if your calendar year is different from your financial year. Majority of us, our year end is on the 30th of June. So the last closing day here, after you do the year end, will be displayed as when that year end process is done. Different from inventory module, the AR year end close does give you option to print a report. So when you leave the option ticked and you click on the year-end process button, then you will get a report at the end of the year-end process for the AR module. It will tell you, what is the year-to-date figures for the debtors that's impacted by the year-end process. Okay, so let's move back to the slideshow. So next we're going to talk about payable management year-end routine. Very similar with receivables year-end routine process. The key things we recommend you to make sure that's covered. Make sure all the transactions for the closing financial year are posted, and also print your age trial balances with options report, and also print the vendor period analysis report if you use those reports for any purpose. Again, backup before you do the year end. Once you've done the backup, then you can perform the year-end process. And then after the year-end process is done, make sure you do another backup. So very, very similar process as AR. The PM updates based on the routine. So what the year-end updates will do, it updates based on the routine rather than the date. PM summary reports. So those are the reports. It will get updated as part of the year-end close routine. And the example is if you enter 2009 to 2010 transactions before you complete the PM year-end close, you can change the amount. So this is the screen that I showed you in AR. I'm going to show you again that screen in AP. So let's go to the purchasing module. And in the inquiry, there is a similar screen as the one I show you in AR. It's called creditor yearly. So you see how the screen is structured in a very similar way as AR. So if we bring up any of your favorite creditors, you can see the data is actually displaying in, by the current year to date and last year and life to date transactions. So again, when you perform payable subledger year-end close, figures displayed into the year-to-date column will move to last year. And then the year-to-date figures will start from fresh as you posting transactions into the future year. So again, this is just the inquiry earnings screen. It doesn't do any damage if you did somehow post transactions into the future year prior to the subledger payables module year-end close. It's just that this window, the information displayed on this window won't be that accurate. Again, I don't know many clients purely relying on that screen for inquiry. So it's not a critical or major issue if you did post transaction into the future year before you run the year-end close. Okay, now let's have a look at the year-end close screen itself in Payables module. Again, year-end close is under routine area and very simple screen. So it's almost identical with the AR payable AR year-end close window. So usually we do a close year for financial year, and you have the option to tick the print year-end report as part of the year-end close for payable module, just like receivables. And all you need to do, instead of that process button at the top left-hand corner for AR module, you click on the close year button in AP. So that's a minor difference in AP module. So that's quite straightforward, I believe. Okay, right. Let's move on. Okay, after we close inventory, AR, AP, then if you've done all the process for the last month for your fixed asset module, then you must close fixed asset module before you process the next year's process in fixed asset module. So this is the difference between the fixed asset module and all the other sub-module in Grey Plans. So I just stress that again. Fixed asset module year-end close must be performed before we start future year process in fixed asset module. And we have to make sure that when we perform fixed asset year-end process routine, we have completed the payables year-end routine. We've entered all of the fixed asset transactions for the year we are going to close, and we've done depreciation, asset addition, and asset retirement process for the year we're going to close. We have run GL interface from fixed asset module to the general ledger. We perform the GL posting, and we've run necessary reports as part of the usual month-end process for the last financial period for the financial year we are going to close. And we also need to ensure fixed asset calendar is built. And so once all of the preparation work is done for fixed asset module, then we will need to do a backup. That's the year-end, prior year-end backup. And then we are ready to do the actual year-end close in fixed asset modules. After that's done, we still need to remember we need to do another backup. Okay, so let's have a look in Grey Plan. We mentioned the fixed asset module calendar. We need to make sure that's set up before we carry out the actual fixed asset year-end process. And this window can be found under the financial setup area. It's under the subsection for fixed asset module called calendar. Now, this is a slightly different looking screen from any version prior to GP 2013. So for some of you that still running GP version prior to GP 2013, you will remember your screen is quite different from this one. I won't go into too much detail about the series of new features about fixed asset module, but all I can say is fixed asset module is one of those modules that has had a lot of new features introduced in GP 2013. Anyway, so the way to verify the fixed asset calendar is being built is just select the fixed asset calendar, right? I've set a default one, very simple to do, just click the button, say verify, okay? And you just make sure to say, yes, I'd like to perform that now, and the process usually doesn't take long at all. At the end of the verify calendar process, you get a report. If there are any errors, it'll be displayed on the report. So I don't see anything wrong in my calendar. My calendar starts from 1st of January 1911 and goes to the end of December in 2209. The previous version, I think the year goes up to 2199. So the span covered in this new version of fixed assets covers a few more years. Cool. Now, so that's how we perform a fixed asset calendar year verification process. It's quite straightforward. So once we know there's nothing wrong with the calendar, then we can go ahead and perform the fixed asset year-end close, which is in, again, the routine area under financial and in the fixed asset area. So this is the year-end. It's, again, very simple process. Once we've done all the preparation work and make sure the last financial period for fixed asset processes are all performed. It's basically, because fixed asset allows us to set up multiple books, so if you do have multiple books that you wish to do year-end close for, you have to do them, in that screen. You can select all of them over here, and then just to say continue. That'll perform the year-end. And the result of this year-end, each of the closed book will automatically have the financial year rolled on to the next financial year for you, because that cannot be in this version I'm on. You cannot manually adjust that. So it has to be rolled on from the year-end process. So if the year-end process is not done, then you basically can't process any future transaction in this version. But whereas in the prior version, you can still do it because you can manually select the year that linked to any book that you set up in a fixed asset module. So that's improved the feature in the version I'm on. Okay, so that's fixed asset module. The key thing we need to remember is, we need to make sure before we do the fixed asset year-end process, payables year-end has been done, and all of your fixed asset related processes, be it depreciation, new addition, retirement, are all performed. And also we need to verify the fixed asset calendar are built correctly. Then is the backup. Then we can do the year-end. And as last thing, we recommend you to do a backup. So that summarizes the fixed asset module year-end process, which actually comes to the end of the sub-module year-end closing grade plan. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the general ledger year-end routine. The general ledger year-end usually is the major year-end process we have to do on a yearly basis. The sub-ledgers, you don't have to perform. You don't rely on those inquiry screens. But general ledger, year-end closes is something you must do if you want to get your financial reporting correct. Okay, so let's run through some routine overview on general ledger, GP general ledger year-end process. The first thing we recommend you do is close other modules. So this literally say closing other modules, I'll show you what I mean, is basically not necessarily you have to run through subledger year-end close procedure, but go into the routine area for each sub-module you have. Basically, what it says is you need to make sure all the subledger process are all done for the financial year you're trying to close. Okay, and also there is an area that we can make sure under the company setup area, we have a screen called financial period. We need to make sure all the subledgers are closed. So basically, usually that'll be what it looks like when it's a year end. All the subledgers are closed, but financial period is the last period that's still open for you to do the year end, and so is the tax period. So usually that would be ideally what it look like, in terms of period, close or open control. So that's what we mean by subledger. All the other modules are ready for year-end close, for GL year-end close. And also, we recommend you to post final adjusting entries in the GL module. So if you have anything that as an adjusting entry you need to do, you can post those before your year-end. But that's not to say after the year-end you can't post adjusting journals. With the way GP GL year-end works and how GP is designed to work, we can still posting adjust journals to the last closed financial year. That's as of GP 2013. And also we recommend you to print an account list, verify posting type of each account. Now, the significance of that is because at the very beginning of the webinar, I said what GP end of year does, because it's going through every single chart of account that has balances outstanding, and it will check all those account posting type, and will zero out all the P&L account balances and sum those balances up and post it into the retained earnings account. And if accounts are set up as balance sheet account, then the balance will be moved forward, become beginning balance for the next financial year. So imagine if one of the account, the posting type, is set up wrong. The P&L account has been somehow by mistake set up as a balance sheet account, then the balance for this P&L account, if any, is not going to be summed up into your retained earnings amount as part of the year. So that's why prior to GL year-end close, we strongly recommend you do this checking. Okay, one way of checking that is we can set up Smart List reports, which I'm going to show you quickly. In GradePlan, Smart List is a very handy tool to perform inquiries in GradePlan. So this is the new version of Smart List. It looks quite smart, really. Under financial and accounts area, I've got a report that's been set up to allow me to check whether any of my balance sheet accounts are set up as a P&L by mistake, because we're so busy. It's human nature. Sometimes we'll have this oopsie moments happen. So when that happens, we need to make sure we correct that before we do the GL year-end. And this report will check that for me. For example, I'm just running this, and straight away, I picked up an account. By description, we can see this is account payable account meant to be a balance sheet account, but somehow it's been set up to the wrong posting type, and that's not correct. So we can easily, by double-click on this record, and go into the account maintenance window, and change the posting type and save this account. Okay, once that's done, if I refresh my Smart List, it's no longer telling me any balance sheet account is set to the wrong type. And you will need to do the same for the P&L account. So I have another report set up, and looks like I have more accounts set up wrong from the P&L account type somehow it's set to the wrong type. So those are the things that, we strongly recommend you do before you run year-end. Otherwise, we know your year-end figure won't be correct if the posting type of accounts are set up wrong. And this kind of report setup is quite simple. We usually do know what your natural account range is for your chart accounts, right? So in my sample database, all of my P&L accounts are under 4,000 range. So that's why I'll find out any account meant to be set up as a balance sheet account, but somehow the posting type is set to wrong by running this report, because my search criteria are saying my natural account range is less than 4,000. In theory, it should be set up as balance sheet, but it's somehow unfortunately set to P&L. Then this report will pick this account up and telling me this is wrong. Okay, so the other report, which is the balance P&L account, for that set up to balance sheet is the same logic. So this is why the two reports in Smarties is very handy to set up and handy to use and quick to identify any account set up wrong. So this is checking that we strongly recommend you to run prior to the GL end of year process. Okay, so again, the next thing we recommend you to do is close the last period of the financial year. So you just go back to the period setup screen and tick that close. And perform file maintenance on the financial series. Those file maintenance are the check links. That's how we kind of covered at the beginning of the webinar. It will check the data integrity for you. And then we also verify settings in the general ledger setup window. So the general ledger setup window looks like this. Okay, so the general ledger setup window will define what is the account that we nominated as the retained earnings account and whether or not we remain history after the year-end close. Obviously, most of us want to remain history. That's why when we do financial reporting, we can show current year figures, prior year figures, how we're performing, whether we're making any progress, and that kind of comparison. So if you do want to maintain history, make sure those, account history, transaction history, budget transaction history are all ticked. And some places people like to restart the journal entry number in the new financial year from number 1. So this is where you can adjust that too after the year-end close. But majority of people just let the general ledger entry number continue rolling on, so that's fine. So those are the key things on the general ledger setup window will have an impact on whether or not the GL end of year process is done correctly. Okay, now after we verify settings in GL setup, it's the backup. The backup throughout the year-end process. We need to do a pre-year-end closing backup and then print all the necessary detailed trial balance reports that you wish to print and also financial reports. Okay, so if you use FRX or Management Reporter or any other financial reporting tool, we strongly recommend you to print those reports prior to the year-end close. So financial statements and set up a new financial year. Now the year-end process will prompt you if the next financial year is not even set up before you do the year-end process. It's not going to roll the year over because it doesn't know where to put the figure to. So usually the new financial year needs to be set up way before we do the year-end close. And if you haven't, this is the time you have to do it. And then is, close the year and close the financial period for all series. That's the financial period setup window I showed you before. Just say close all. That'll, very quickly close every single module for you. And adjust the budget figures for the new year and the print financial statements. Then we'll need to do a post-year-end closing backup. So prior year-end backup, do the year-end close, the necessary adjustments on the budget figures, and then do a post-year-end close backup. Now the actual GL financial year-end close window looks like this. It's again on the routine. It's in the financial area. Okay, now this window, the retained earning account automatically shows up because that's just reading it from the GL setup window. That's the one I showing you before. And also the starting journal entry number, that's also come from the GL general ledger setup window. Okay, there are a couple of options there. You can choose to remove unused segment numbers as part of the year-end process, and you can actually choose to maintain inactive accounts. And if that's not ticked, inactive accounts will be removed. And if you pick that option, then you have, whether or not you want to maintain a with budget, or whether or not you want to basically just apply this rule to all inactive accounts, regardless whether the account has budget figure or not. So the next financial year is going to change once we do the year-end process and by click on the close year button. Again, this process, the time, the length of how long the process will go depending on the number of records the end of the year will need to go through. And so usually it doesn't take long. As part of the year-end process, the year-end close report will print at the end of the process. And that's the report prior to GP 2013 R2 is the report you cannot reprint. So make sure the printer is hooked on, is linked to your GP, and also papers available in there, so you can get the hard copy if you wish. Otherwise, you can save a PDF version for your own record. So that's the GL year-end process. It's pretty straightforward once all the preparation work is done. And just a very quick point, a few points about year-end routine. So we need to ensure all posting accounts have been set up with the correct posting type. That's what we mentioned before. And tips, a quick way to do this is use SmartList. This is also we covered before. So those are quick tips. Other things that year-end we recommend you to do is ensure you have the maintain history. We also cover that. Options ticked in the financial setup area. If these options are not selected, then history information will be deleted. So we don't know whether you like that. Probably majority of people wouldn't like to have that happen. But the good thing is once the general ledger module is set up, it's not going to change. So we just routinely go in and double check that there hasn't been somehow unticked by mistake. So we've showed you that screen. The GL year-end close window is under Tools Routine on the financial area. The correct retained earning account should be listed there. If not, then you can go into the GL setup area to select the correct account. And the other things we need to be aware is to ensure the year's been closed is correct. So if we meant to close 2014, somehow the year displayed there is a different year, then we need to be alert. Select the close year option, which is the button down the bottom right-hand corner of the year, which will kick off the GL year-end process for you. And as mentioned, at the end of the GL year-end process, end of year report will be printed. This report will list the accounts that have been closed and the transaction corrected to close them. This report is part of the audit trail and should be saved with your company's permanent record. This report should be printed to both printer and file. Reprint the profit and loss and balance sheet reports to ensure the expected results. As the last few things, we need to make sure we close all financial periods for all series at the end of the GL year-end process and take a complete backup of the grade plan system and keep in a safe place. So backup. It's been repeatedly mentioned in this webinar. So hopefully that, emphasize the importance of a backup as part of the year-end routine. If for those of you that use general ledger, use analytical accounting, now be aware there is no separate closing procedure for AA. Make sure you log in as the SA user before you run the GL year-end routine. This will eliminate permission errors in AA. So for no any other reason, just a permission in AA, it's recommended that you log in as SA user. For version-wise, for GP10, SP2, and above, you are able to consolidate the AA dimension data, which creates balance brought forward entries. And the last thing we need to be aware is if you have AA, best practice would be to contact help desk or request a consultant to assist. So in other words, AA general ledger, AA year-end routine is a little bit complex than the usual other modules. So we recommend you to just get some help from us if you feel that hesitate to go ahead and do it by yourself.